Good morning, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. My name is Kimberly Trimmel. I look forward to the time we're going to spend together today. For those of you I already know, hello. For those of you I don't know, it is a pleasure to meet you. My name is Kimberly Trimmel. As I mentioned, I am a trainer, coach, and speaker with the Maxwell Leadership Certified Team. This April is Global Youth Initiative Month. Global Youth Initiative Month. And what that means is that we all have been charged to reach out to youth and add value to their lives. So there's a couple of things I want to preface this with. I'm going to give a couple people a minute or two to get on. Hello, good to see you. Thank you so much for stopping by my page today, whether you're joining me on Facebook or whether you're joining me on YouTube or whether you're joining me on LinkedIn. I am glad to see you. It is an honor and a privilege to hang out with you for a few moments. So, what do I want to talk about today? As I mentioned, it's Global Youth Initiative. And here at the Maxwell team, our goal is to make sure that we add value to the lives of youth. So, the first Global Youth Initiative activity that I did is I actually read a book called Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn, which for the rest of us might be called Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Lose. But the most important thing is to teach people to realize that, yeah, sometimes you win, but sometimes you learn. So don't feel bad if it doesn't quite go the way you want. So that was what I read the book to a group of children. It was a very short read. It talked about some children that were playing a game. It wasn't going so well. They were getting frustrated. They were getting angry, and how their grandpa helped them work it out. And that helped them realize, sometimes you'll win, which is a game that they were playing, and sometimes you don't. And if you don't win, what do you do with that? What do you do with that energy? So, as I was thinking about this today, I was thinking to myself, what is it that I can do? What can I share with people? And what's been heavy on my heart lately is what the youth are going through. Actually, everybody's been going through quite the shift lately, right? But when we think about youth, teenagers, they are faced with unprecedented issues. Unprecedented. When we were growing up, what did we have to worry about? Making sure that we were in by the time the street lights went on, our moms would get upset with us. Making sure that we didn't talk to what we call stranger danger. Making sure that we were in school and we were supposed to be in school. Bullies, now we have cyber bullies. So the youth these days, the teenagers, are faced with unprecedented issues, which is giving them unprecedented stress. And I kind of look around at teenagers and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're having to deal with things we've never had to deal with. So, in light of the fact that this is Global Youth Initiative Month with the Maxwell Leadership Team, I thought, what better thing could I do other than to share with others how they might be able to share with their teenagers how to deal with what's going on out there. And every day it's like, oh my gosh, it's like another issue, another issue. It's like, okay, stop now, right? And why is this important? Well, my first Global Youth Initiative, I work with children. And as I mentioned, there's a book that was written for children that are like kindergarten age. So I enjoyed that. And then this particular time, I wanted to talk with teens. So what happens, let me show you the book. It's called Sometimes You Win and Sometimes You Learn. Sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. Why is this important? Sometimes you win. We all like winning. We all love to win. But sometimes have you noticed that you don't win? Sometimes you just don't win. But guess what? You can take that experience and turn it into a lesson. So that's why it says sometimes you win, sometimes you, instead of lose, it says learn. And it's for teens. So this is what I wanted to share with you all today. In light of Global Youth Initiative Month, I hope that you will share this message or the video. You can find me on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and you can simply share the link. Again, my name is Kimberly Trimmel, trainer, speaker, and coach with John Maxwell Certified Leadership Team, and I am honored to be with you today. So when I was thinking about what am I going to talk about, what can I share? I was reflecting, And I was like, huh. Then I picked up the book and I found one of my favorite chapters. I'll tell you what it says. It says the advantage of adversity. The advantage of adversity. You might think to yourself, advantage, adversity, that's not possible. They don't go together. They absolutely do. I know I work with adults and I talk to them about turning adversity into advantage. This is taking the advantage and of the adversity and learning from it. So let me share a few nuggets with you in our short time together today. It says adversity is a catalyst for learning. It can actually create advantage for you to face it with the right mindset. So what does that tell us first? That tells us that adversity can be used to our advantage if we have the right mindset. It also depends on how you respond to it. So here's what John says. Adversity introduces ourselves to ourselves if we want it to. So what are the choices that we have when we consider adversity? Well, our first choice is folding. Oh my, that didn't work out. I'm not going to try anymore. I quit. Well, I've got this reminder, quitters never win and winners never quit. So if you are a teen out there listening to me right now, or the parent of a teen, or the aunt or an uncle of a teen, or even an older sibling, you know, because you're here, that we can't fold when things don't go well. We've got it. Back in the day, they would call it grit, right? They would call it grit. So what is that? Grit is the stick-to-itiveness, right? The stick-to-itiveness, the ability to stay the course even when things aren't going well. And teenagers have so many things going on with them that it might be difficult for them to actually see clear through the mess to see the message, right? They have to actually consider, what am I looking for and where am I going to? So let me continue. It says that adversity always gets our attention. We can't ignore it. So what does adversity do for a teen? Well, an adversity could actually stop somebody right in their tracks. It does it for us adults. The only difference is we've learned how to work around it. We've learned how to take that adversity and use it for engine oil or engine or gasoline or accelerator. It actually allows us to accelerate ourselves through whatever that challenge it is. But we've got the gift of maturity. We've been around a little bit. Whether we're 20, 30, 40, 50, or 60 years old and above, the reality is that we have learned how to harness the adversity experience. But teens, what did we have to deal with when we were kids? As I said a moment ago, making sure that when we come in by the time the streetlights go on, before else we get in trouble. Making sure that we didn't talk to strangers. All of these things we were trained and we were taught to do. And so whenever adversity struck, we kind of knew what to do. Well, we learned from experience. I don't know about you, but when I learned to ride a bike, when I was riding a bike, I would fall down. My mom taught me how to ride a bike. I'd fall down, and then guess what? I'd get back up. Yeah, my knees were bloody. Yeah, I was crying. But my mom helped me I got up, and then my mom helped me, and I kept going and riding. I fell down again. More blood, more tears. Got up again, fell down. This went on for a while. You get the picture. So why is this important? Because we have the ability to get up as adults and say, dust ourselves off and say, well, what is this? What do I do with this experience? And take it and use it to propel us forward. Our teens, on the other hand, you teens, which are young adults, so you'll eventually learn the same thing yourself, and you probably have experienced it a little bit. But the reality is the teenagers, they are dealing with a pandemic that just happened 3 years ago. They're dealing with things that we never saw growing up. Why is that important? Because this was heavy on my heart to share with you all, because I think it's a message that everybody needs to hear, not just teens, but us too. It's always a good reminder. So I'll continue. Adversity always gets our attention. We can't ignore it. It causes us to stop and look at our situation. Adversity is like a mirror. Here's the mirror. Here's us looking in it. It's like, oh, I'm like that. Oh no, that's the way I respond to that situation. oh my, that is not the way I would have liked to respond. Now, what happens sometimes when we're younger, and maybe when we're older, though we're gotten better at it, at minimizing it, is we respond in anger. We respond in frustration. We respond in the blame game because that's just, when you're younger, that's what you do. Heck, sometimes you do it when you're an adult. But then you check yourself and you're like, wait a minute. I need to look internally. I need to go within and I need to see what is it that's causing me to respond this way or react this way, actually. So it causes ourselves to look at ourselves if we have the courage. It takes courage to look at ourselves. Adversity is an opportunity for self-discovery. As the great Egyptian leader Anwar el-Sadat said, great suffering builds up human beings and it puts them within the reach of self-knowledge. This, I believe, is true if we embrace it that way. Unfortunately, many people choose to hide during times of adversity. I call this the head in the sand rule. It's not really a rule, but it's a default. So, head in the sand. Something's not going right. You're like, oh no, I'll just put my head in the sand. I'll wait until this is over. I don't want to deal with this. Oh my gosh, I'll just do nothing. Inactivity is a decision. Doing nothing is a decision. The fact that you've come to the crossroad lets you know that there's opportunity to make a decision to the positive or to the negative. And especially in your younger years of life, anytime, but your younger season, I believe we all go through seasons no matter how old we are. When you are just starting the foundation of your life, what you do today can absolutely propel you to where you want to be in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, and beyond. So why is that important? Because unfortunately, many people, they put their head in the sand. They just choose to ignore it. They withdraw. They withdraw from friends. They withdraw from family. So for me, I know personally as an adult, and as a teen, whenever things were overwhelming, I would take a ride to the lakefront, and I have a favorite place. I call it the Point, and I would just sit there and look at the water and then get in tune with the calmness. Or I would take my shoes off at the beach and stick my feet in the sand. Why is that important? Because I would unplug to plug back in. I would unplug. I would disengage, not for a long period of time, not with my family, but just to kind of get to that alone place where it's me in the stillness and I could say, okay, all is right in my world. I'm ready to go out there and do it again. So I don't know where that place is for you, but that is a possibility if you like the lakefront. Or do you like to run? Do you like to work out? What's your, place that you enjoy that's a healthy space to be in that you can actually process some of the frustration that might be going on? Because the reality is sometimes we do win. Sometimes things don't go well. The only time and the only place where there's no issues whatsoever is when a person's passed away, right? So when you're looking at the day you were born and you're looking at the day that you're no longer going to be here, there's something called a dash in the middle. I've heard it said best, make your dash count. And you might think, well, I'm only 18. I'm only 17. What are you talking about, lady? I'm only 13. I'm a new teenager. You're right, you are. What a perfect place to kind of start putting some roots down. Your 13-year-old will become a 31-year-old, which will become a 61-year-old. What does that look like? Most people fail in growing up. They don't really fail, but they fail forward. But they can take advantage of learning some of the lessons from the people that went before them, their parents, their grandparents, if they're still around, books. We're going to talk about a couple of books that have got some great value in them. So as I said, unfortunately, many people choose to hide during times of adversity. They withdraw from their friends and family. I submit to you that your friends and family love you. So withdrawing from them is not a good idea. I would also check your circle. What kind of people are you hanging around? Are they going in the direction that you want to go? Do they have life goals? Or are they content just like, oh, I'll just do whatever? Which again, I know we've got the teenage factor going on. But the more you think about the future when you're a teenager, the better your future will be. So they try to distract themselves. They do whatever they can to avoid dealing with the reality of the situation. Maybe if I just ignore it, it'll go away. It won't. Maybe so. What can you do? An alternative. You could go take a nap. I know it's probably not going to do that at 13. You could journal. You could go to the lakefront. You could go ride your bike. If you have a bike, you could go for a run. You can do something that's healthy and that's actually going to help propel you forward so you can make it through whatever's going on. One of my favorite books, as I mentioned, I said I'd mention a book to you. One of my favorite books is by James Allen. It's called As a Man Thinketh. And here's when John Maxwell's father was here, and when he was a child, his dad made him read it. And he says, one of the ideas that left the strongest impression on me was this: circumstance does not make the man, it reveals himself to himself. And it's man, woman, person, doesn't matter. Circumstances don't make you. You know, maybe you didn't get the grade you wanted on that particular exam. Maybe that last experience didn't turn out the way you wanted it to. But what did you learn from it? That's what I'm recommending or suggesting to you, that you kind of take a look at, what am I learning from these things? How about this one? It says, it is true that circumstances do not make the man, it reveals him to himself. But what it also does is, if they allow it to, it'll allow you to learn something. Adversity has introduced me to myself many times during my lifetime. It has opened my eyes. It has gone deep into my heart. It has tested my strength, and it has taught me a lot. So here are a few things that John shares with us, and I'll share something myself. So it says, when I grow up, or when I was growing up and I've gotten off track, I'm seemingly lost. When I seem to be off track or lost, I've learned that the road to success is not always a clear, straight road. So you might think, I want the straight path. At least that's what I think. I want the straight path. I don't want that path over there that's all crooked and has thorns and stuff like that. I don't want that path. Give me the straight path. Make it so easy for me that I could just walk down the straight path and end up where I'm trying to go. I submit to you that the straight path doesn't get you to where you're going. Every one of you, every teen, every adult, you are all destined for greatness. You were built with greatness. You were born with greatness in you. You have the seed of a leader in you, whether you're an adult or a child. Even if you're an adult who's already leading, everybody has it in them. You have the potential. You are fully resourced to do everything that you've ever thought about doing. The reality is, you have to choose. Am I going to do good? Am I going to not do good? Well, when you do well, what does that do? The overflow spills onto others and it helps people. It's kind of like when you're on an airplane and they tell you, if anything should happen, put your oxygen mask on first and then put it on the person that you're traveling with. Well, why is that important? Because if you aren't going to survive, how are you going to help that other person survive? So we've got to make sure that we're in the positive mindset so that we're able to help others. So I'll continue. When I've been exhausted and frustrated, I've learned that trying times are not the time to stop trying. Trying times are not the time to stop trying. So let's say you're working on something and it's like, oh my gosh, this is just not working for me. What am I going to do? It's not working. I think I quit. Remember, I told you a moment ago, quitters never win and winners never quit. You will never win if you quit. Again, I'm talking to teenagers. The adults, you already know this, but then every now and again, we all need a tune-up, right? So hopefully this resonates with you as well. But quitters never win. If you quit, you're not going to make it, ever. If you're like, well, you know, Susie over there, Susie's not doing anything, I'm not going to do anything either. I'm sure things will be all right. No. Who walks in your shoes? Not Susie. And I'm hypothetically using that name. It could be Jim. It could be Joe. It doesn't matter. Just a name. So why is that important? Because trying times, when things are hard, it is not the time to stop trying. I've heard it best said that the best value that you add happens outside of your comfort zone. Growth occurs outside of your comfort zone. If everybody were able to be super comfortable in whatever they were doing, success would be like a cinch, right? So growth exists outside of your comfort zone. If things are hard, reflect on what's hard about it. How can you help somebody else through it after you get through it? It's kind of like saying, this is the way, follow me, I'll help you. And that is something you can consider. Let me see what else he says. When I've been discouraged with my progress, I've learned not to let what I was doing get to me before I got to it. So, what does that mean? That means don't let whatever's bothering you flatten you out to the point where you're immobile. You've got to get to it. How do you get on top of it? How do you get on top of the situation so the situation doesn't take you over? So, what does that look like? When you look at life's adversities, when you look at things that aren't going well, and you turn them around and you're like, okay, what's the lesson here? What's the lesson here? What can I do? What can I do? How can I turn this situation around? When I failed, I've learned that I will not be judged by the number of times I've failed, but by the number of times I've succeeded. So teenagers need to be reminded as teenagers that they're not going to be judged on when they've fallen. Oh, well, you didn't do a good job on this issue. Oh, teen, you didn't do a good job on that issue. That's not the way we want to help our kids, right? That's not the way we want to help our nieces, our nephews, people in our lives. Teenagers are dealing with unprecedented issues. In my office, I have a picture of Abraham Lincoln. Do you know how many times he failed? I think it's like 7 or 8. He kept running for Senate. He didn't get elected. First I thought it was his wife, fiance, had a nervous breakdown. I think she passed away subsequently. Why is this important? Because if you allow life's issues to knock you down, you're never going to realize your full potential. Again, as a teenager, you're thinking, lady, I'm only 13 years old. And that's okay. We were all 13-year-olds at one time. Why is that important? Because teenagers, I want you to hear me, and I want you to hear me clearly, that you have the potential to change this world that we're in. You could be a future leader. Well, you are a future leader if you so desire, but you have to decide. And to decide is to cut off all other options. Decide. Side is like anything that ends in the word CIDE. Generally had like a germicide or something like that. It's something that kills or eliminates. A decide eliminates all other decisions, and you are laser focused on the way you want to go. Now, this might be a little heavy for you if you're only 13, but you could be a very further advancing 13-year-old, and you might capture a glimpse of what I'm talking about. Or what about if you're 16, 17, or 18, and you're like, wow, I totally get what she's saying. You have the ability to change the world around you by changing your perception of adversity. So let me continue. Adversity is a better teacher to us than success is if we let it be. With adversity, the teacher will come whether the student is ready or not. You ever heard about the teacher will come when the student is ready? Adversity doesn't necessarily wait. It's like, wait a minute, I wasn't ready for that. That wasn't supposed to happen. Wait a minute, that's supposed to be my best friend and that's not working out. Oh no, what am I going to do? You can either flatten out and give up. That's a choice. But if you flatten out and give up, how are you ever going to go up? How are you ever going to get to, my hope is that your parents or some of the people that you admire, how are you, or a teacher or a friend or a aunt or an uncle or a grandparent, how are you going to ever get there if you don't build a bridge from where you are to where you want to be? I submit to you that a lot of that is going to be mindset, right? Do you know that the way you think about things makes all the difference in the world? Thoughts become things. The way you think becomes a reality. How do I know? Take a look at the shoes on your feet, if you have any shoes on your feet right now. Take a look at the shoes on your feet. They didn't just fall out of the sky and woof, now you have shoes. No, they didn't. You actually had an idea. You went out to buy the shoes, or your parents got them for you. Either way, you had an idea. Thoughts become things. When we think of things and then we work towards having them and making them happen, it happens. Do you realize that our mind do not know the difference between prosperity and poverty? You can think poverty all day long, and guess what you will get? Poverty. Do you know that if you think prosperity all day long, eventually you will get that? Why is that important? Because seeds produce after their own kind. I was actually listening to something, I don't remember what it was the other day, and someone said, watch what you're saying because your body's listening to you. You know how sometimes people are saying, oh, I can't do that. You're probably right. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you're right. No matter what, you're right. Either way, which way do you want to think? So you as a teenager have your whole life ahead of you. Your whole entire life. Do you know how huge that is? What are you going to do with it? Don't let life's adversities, life's hiccups, life's speed bumps, don't let them derail you. This is what Oprah Winfrey says. She says, hold on and I'll tell you. She says, turn your wounds into wisdom. Turn your wounds, turn the things that didn't turn out right into wisdom, not only for yourself, but for others. Trust me, there's usually a friend that you have that's going through something similar. I would suggest journal it. You could either get a sheet of paper or a spiral notebook. I'm a spiral notebook nut. And you could start journaling. What I usually suggest is get a piece of paper, as I said, or a spiral notebook, and divide it into halves, or you could even divide it into thirds. Why am I suggesting that? The first column, what I want you to do is I want you to write down the adversity or what happened. So you're going to get a ruler or a straight edge, and you're going to put a line down, and you're going to write the first column is going to be what happened. The second column is what did I learn from it? So what happened? What did I learn from it? The third column, that very third column, and I'm talking about an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. You could perhaps do this on a computer and do it instead of doing it portrait. You could do it landscape, and then you'd have a wider document to work with. You choose. But why is that important? Write down and start journaling the date, what happened that you thought was bad, the adversity, and sometimes it might seem crushing at the time. It just depends on what it is. Believe it or not, most everything we can learn something from, especially the most uncomfortable things. And then what is the lesson that you learned? So what happened? What's the lesson you learned? And then how are you going to deal with it in the future? And as I said, you might want to consider doing you could use a legal size paper, a piece of paper, or you could do this on computer. I think there's an amazing connection between ourselves when we write things out. So between our brain, I've heard that you're 7 times more likely to remember things if you write them down. So Oprah says, this is her advice, turn your wounds into wisdom. It can only come for us if we want to learn from it. Adversity also opens up the doors for new opportunities. So what are the opportunities that you have from these adversities? I submit to you, there's a world of opportunities out there for you. I honestly believe that, and I'm sure like in my mother's day, in the 50s and such like that, when she was a teenager, they dealt with different things. When I was a teenager, we dealt with different things, but we didn't have to deal with the pandemic. We didn't have to deal with some of the unprecedented things that are going on. So my personal message to you teenagers is don't give up. Don't give up on you. You're amazing. You're perfect. You might not be perfectly perfect, but you're perfect. And I want you to realize your value. I want you to realize that you can take what's going on, these adversities, you can turn them into advantage. You can help your friends. Heck, you might even be able to model something that helps your parents. Parents, I don't know about you, but I have 4 children, 3 girls and a boy. They're all grown up. But I know 9 times out of 10, I'm modeling, whether they've been in my home or live on their own now. I've been modeling resilience. I've been modeling it's going to be okay. You can model that for your children. Sometimes they'll hear your voice. Sometimes they'll listen to you. Not all teens, but many teens. If that's not your situation currently, or if you find yourself that you've disconnected of late, reconnect. Reconnect. Go out to dinner. Order something in and sit down at the dining room table or in the family room or in the kitchen. Whatever your favorite place to eat is, eat. Ask each other questions. To come up with engaging questions. And many of you are probably already doing this. It's just these are some cool things I've learned over the last few years that I've instilled in my children. You know, who's the person you most admire and why? What are you doing at school and what's working, what's not working? What are the issues that you're dealing with at school right now? How can I help you? What do you have to celebrate? What are your wins lately? Tell me about what's going on that's going well. So these conversations, no cell phones. I know that's a big deal. No, I'm talking technology aside, fully focused on each other. And initially, depending upon what your family dynamic is, maybe it doesn't come easily. So set the timer for 10 minutes and try to do it for 10 minutes. Then 15 minutes, then 20 minutes. Do something that reconnects you all and reconnects you. Oftentimes, what happens is we get so used to the busyness of being busy that we forget to connect with the family, our family, right? Family's so important. Family's so important. Our moms, our dads, our brothers, our sisters, our cousins, nieces, nephews. Sometimes you have a voice that they can hear. And if you all are teens and you're listening to this, and I hope you are, number one, I hope that you got some information out of this. I think the biggest takeaway I'd like to close with is turn life's detours into lessons. Turn your losses into lessons, which this will be my closing statement. A loss isn't totally a loss if you learn from it. If you learn through trial and error, I am not saying that tomorrow you're going to wake up and you're going to be, I've got this, I'm perfect. No, that's not going to happen. Some days you're going to do better than others. Journaling will help tremendously in processing thoughts. And just know that you're capable. You can get through this. You absolutely can. Yes, I know it's heavy out there, but it's heavy for everyone, but you're younger. And I think you might have a thicker skin or you might be a little bit more resilient because unfortunately, going back to 2001, it's been a challenging time for all. But just because might have a thicker skin, maybe you're a little bit more resilient, doesn't mean that it's not impacting you. So understand that you are cared for. Your parents love you, even though sometimes, they might discipline you or something like that. And I know, I sound like my mom, but that's okay. Funny, when you get to be a mom, you sound like a mom. But I truly hope that you've gotten something out of this. This is just a sampling of some of the things I'm blessed to do with youth. Thank you so much. If this material resonated with you, you can find me on Facebook. You can message me. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on LinkedIn. Either way, I enjoy adding value, and thank you for allowing me to add value to your life today. Thank you for participating in the Global Youth Initiative with Maxwell Leadership Certified Team. My name is Kimberly Trummel. I'm a coach, trainer, and speaker with John Maxwell's Leadership Certified Team. Be well, stay well, hold your image. Bye-bye for now.